I'm going to walk you through how you can use Claude Code in your IDE with a local file repository to basically make sense of an ever-growing body of interview transcripts or transcripts of any kind. Any team I've worked with that interviews customers regularly suffers from last interview bias. So the last interview they did is fresh in mind and everything that happened before is kind of forgotten and grows stale. I feel like this setup is a really good antidote for it. So I'm going to start by talking you through the folder structure. On top I have a company folder, which basically has all the overarching context that the agent might need to understand what we're even talking about. So I have, for example, a product overview. What is the product? What is the product category? Who are the target users? Some more information about the ICP, the ideal customer profile, and their jobs to be done. The goals we're striving for in this year, the competitive landscape that we're operating in, the roadmap, basically all of this important context. Then let's dive into the research folder where I've actually put the interview transcripts. So each of these interview transcripts I have structured in the exact same way every time. On top, I have the profiling data. These are basically the attributes that I will use to segment people. So to basically cluster them in ICPs or sub-ICPs. For example, for Copilot, this example, I have role, seniority, the company type they work at, the region, the current IDE that they're using, and their self-rated AI proficiency. So basically, before you start Discover, you think about what do I think are the attributes that are most important to potentially describe my ICP. I'm going to want to quickly capture that before every interview, right? So that goes on top. Then I have a section for manual notes. I use a note taker, surprise, surprise, hence this whole transcript. Firstly, I always use a note taker that is visible in the call. I personally prefer that. I find it a bit weird to have something running in the background. I also ask people upfront whether it's okay for me to let the note taker into the call. But even though I have a note taker, I still write manual notes as well. I know a lot of teams who don't do that. They just rely fully on the note taker. And at some point they look at the notes and they're like, what was this about? I totally forgot. I don't understand this. So I note down my own insights and opportunities that I pluck out myself directly after the call or during the call. So these opportunities are, of course, customer opportunities. So customer pain points, wishes or desires that I thought were important. So that comes on top. And then there's the full interview transcripts. And basically in my Claude MD file here, I also wrote to weight my manual notes always a bit stronger than what the agent thinks is important from the interview transcripts, but of course to consider both. So that's kind of how I'm trying to steer it. Of course, you can also give the agent a lot of guidelines on what is an important insight, what is a customer opportunity. Takes a bit of training. But so there's different ways around that. Anyhow, this is how each and every one of these files is structured. Now, what can you do with that? So there's 3 ways that I'm going to show you in which you can query this data. Firstly, you can just ask it questions, right? So I could just say stuff like, I'm just going to copy paste here because I don't want you to watch me type. I could say, what's the most important? And when I say important, I mean something that is mentioned a lot and that is also described as being very painful. What is the most important customer opportunity across all interviews? But I can also ask, what is it for developers with low self-rated AI proficiency? And here you already see a little bit of the power, right? I can segment very quickly by new ICPs or sub-segments that I didn't really have in view before. And here I think is the massive uplift that having an AI looking at this body of transcript that has access to this profiling data is just amazing. Because before you couldn't really do this, right? You picked an ICP and you collected this stuff, but it was very hard to see, okay, what is the result of this analysis for if I look at different attributes? And that's now very easy by just asking such a question. So that's one thing that you can do. Another one that I can do, I'm not going to run these because it takes a lot of time, I can go the other way around. If I have an OST and as a team we've decided on a number one opportunity that we want to focus on, I can go back and say, now give me all the quotes from all the interview transcripts around that pain point or around that opportunity. So it kind of gives me this research file or this thing with all of the quotes, maybe with context around it, to help me understand that opportunity better. So these are all just simple questions that you can ask. But what I also find really nice is to do this. Here we go. Wait, sorry, I missed one. I missed the line, let's go again. So go through all interview files in research interviews. For each one, extract name, role. So basically name, role, seniority, company type, region, current IDE, AI proficiency, all of these attributes. The main friction, which categorize into these categories that I manually picked because I know the interviews and I think these matter. And then also the main friction free text. So you just describe it. Dear LLM, dear Claude, how often this friction occurs, the severity, their magic wand wish, categorize their magic wand wish free text, output as CSV. So basically what I did here is I have done a lot of interviews and I've generally asked somewhat the same questions, or these ones came up quite a lot. I've tend to ask, talk me through your job to be done and tell me what you've wished for, or la la la. So I capture all of this stuff, and I might have had a question that says, tell me if you had a magic wand, what would you wish for? This is just an example, right? But what I'm asking you to do is to put this in a tabular overview, so that I don't just get one answer that says, okay, this is an important pain point, but I can see that how it correlates to other stuff, right? So I can see how that sits in an environment of many other opportunities or many other things that came up. So let's see what it does. Write interview extract CSV. There it is. Done. Wow. So this is a very different way of reviewing that data. And I used to maintain such tables manually in Airtable. But this is, of course, much easier. So this is one other way of doing it. What I like here is that you get the context of every other pain point or opportunity around it, rather than just getting one flat answer. But we can also go around, go even further. Let me copy paste one other prompt. Create an interactive HTML dashboard from the CSV with horizontal bar charts for categorical data, vertical bar charts for ordinal data in order, blah, 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 filter drop down. So this is what I find very sexy. As mentioned, I'm always very interested in how the response changes when I look for a different ICP. So I like these filter drop downs for seniority, company type, region. So basically I can visualize this data from the CSV in a dashboard, and I can switch from ICP to ICP to see how things change. Let's see what it does there. All right, here we go. So now we have very nice graphs that use these categories that I defined before giving the agent the prompt. You can, of course, also spar with the agent to figure out what categories you should use. But I have here nice visual overview of what is in all my interviews. And as mentioned, I love this piece, being able to filter. So basically what you're doing, you're taking qualitative data and you're turning it into a more quantitative-like data set. So yeah, there you have it. 3 different ways to query an ever-growing body of interview data. I hope this helps. Let me know.